Hi, my name is Reece, and I'm very passionate about the topic of obesity because I grew up obese. At my highest, my weight was 210 pounds, and I'm 5'3", so that put me at 37.2 BMI. I have since lost around 80 pounds and have kept it off for about 3 years. I'm also very passionate about helping other people achieve this goal.
In considering my own relationship with food, weight, and a history of weight gain and weight loss, I was drawn to learning more about the topic of obesity and the psychological factors that impact everyone's unique perspective on food and their weight. There are many underlying factors to obesity that aren't merely physical, and better understanding the thought processes and emotional processes that contribute to overeating is just as important as diet and exercise to maintaining a healthy weight.
This topic was both interesting and personal to me because I've struggled with my weight most of my life. At a young age, I found refuge in the refrigerator. When things were going well in my life, I was able to maintain a healthy weight. But a tragic event caused me to sometimes binge eat as a way to escape my reality. With an amazing support system, I was able to take back control of my health and currently fighting not only the battle of the bulge, but also battle of the mind.
Obesity is defined by a BMI of greater than or equal to 30. There are 3 classes of obesity. Class 1 ranges from a BMI of 30 to 35, Class 2 ranges from a BMI of 35 to 40, and Class 3, otherwise known as severe or morbid obesity, is a BMI of greater than 40.
However, a waist circumference more than 35 inches for women and more than 40 inches for men can be considered another measurement of obesity.
The prevalence of adult obesity in the United States from 2017 to 2018 was 42.4%.
However, adults are not the only ones affected by obesity.
There are many physical health issues that are linked to obesity, such as type 2 diabetes, heart disease, fatty liver disease, and for women, increased likelihood to experience pregnancy complications.
Other than physical conditions, there are also many emotional and social health issues that are linked to obesity, such as mood disorders, low self-esteem, and experiences of discrimination.
A study published in the New England Journal of Medicine suggests that obesity statistics will only continue to rise.
The physical aspects of obesity have a birelational impact with the psychological state of the individual.
This relationship will determine success or failure in regards to weight loss and maintenance.
While it may be argued that obesity is a battle of the bulge, it is actually a battle of the mind. And social psychology concepts can be used as powerful tools throughout the weight loss journey.
To address the multifaceted issue of obesity, the topic must first be analyzed to understand the nature of what psychologically drives its development and maintenance. Moreover, self-awareness is the first step people must take to overcome such an individualized predicament. There are 2 types of self-awareness, private and public. Private self-awareness means attending to your inner states, including emotions, thoughts, desires, and traits. In other words, it is a matter of looking inward. Public self-awareness is attending to how you are perceived by others, including what others might think of you. Public self-awareness looks outward to understand the self, or seeing yourself through other people's eyes. Self-awareness involves evaluating the self rather than just merely being aware of it. By comparing oneself against various standards, people come up with good or bad evaluations about the self. Standards are ideas of how things might possibly be, including ideals, norms, expectations, moral principles, laws, the way things were in the past, and what other people have done. The self is not good or bad in a vacuum, but only when compared to certain standards. Self-awareness is often unpleasant because people compare themselves to high standards, such as a fashion model's good looks. This makes people feel less positive about themselves and become more likely to develop eating disorders. When people are aware that they fall short of standards, the bad feeling leads to either of 2 reactions: change or escape. One reaction is to try to remedy the problem, such as by improving oneself. This is the ideal response to address obesity, which we will describe later in more detail. However, sometimes changing the standard is easier than changing the self. An example of this is the healthy at every size, fat acceptance, and body positivity movements. While these campaigns are wonderful in terms of advocating for self-love and positive self-esteem, it can be a double-edged sword by normalizing obesity through changing societal standards, which in turn prevents people from reaching a self-awareness where they decide to make lifestyle changes to improve their health. Additionally, another response is to try to avoid or reduce self-awareness so as to escape from feeling bad. Self-awareness theory suggests self-aware people feel bad because they notice any discrepancies between who they are and standards. they can either change by matching the behavior to the standard, or escape by trying to avoid the self-aware state. A person's reaction to standards depends on how promising versus hopeless the prospect of meeting the standard seems. When people think they can reach their goals or other standards in a reasonable time, self-awareness makes them try harder to do so. But if the goal looks unattainable or the person does not feel he or she is making satisfactory progress, then avoiding self-awareness looms as the more appealing solution. Escaping from self-awareness involves narrowing attention to stop rumination about what is wrong with themselves. This concept is called escape theory and relates to binge eating as described both from Heatherton and Baumeister's 1991 article and in our textbook's Food for Thought, Eating Binges and Escaping the Self. Heatherton and Baumeister explain the steps of escape theory as follows. First, the person has a severe experience in which he or she realizes that current outcomes or circumstances fall below societal or self-imposed standards. Second, the person blames these disappointing outcomes on internal aspects of the self, in other words, parts of his or her personality, as opposed to situational factors. The second step incorporates the two-dimensional attribution theory in which ability and effort are blamed, rather than external aspects such as task difficulty or luck. While these attributions are needed to a certain extent to lose weight, the individual who falls victim to escape theory rather than change lacks the self-efficacy needed to succeed. In other words, obese people who struggle with binge eating as a means of escape believe they lack the ability or effort to lose weight. Third, the person recognizes that current outcomes portray the self as inadequate, incompetent, unattractive, or guilty. Fourth, the person experiences negative emotions as a result of the realization that current outcomes fall short of desired expectations. Fifth, the person seeks to escape from this negative psychological reaction by avoiding high-level meaningful thought. Sixth, the consequences of this avoidance of meaningful thought result in a lack of restraint, which may give rise to undesirable behaviors. The steps in escape theory signify points in a causal process that are dependent on each other. The causal process will lead to undesirable behaviors only if the person proceeds through each of the previous 5 steps. If the person explains a recent failure as caused by external situational factors, as opposed to blaming on deficient aspects of the self, then the process will not lead to undesirable behaviors. This relates to binge eating in the following steps. First, a person may realize that he or she is not meeting a self-imposed weight loss goal. Second, a person may explain his or her failure to lose weight as a result of being an incompetent person, instead of focusing on how factors in the environment prevented him or her from losing weight. Third, the person may become intensely aware that his or her failure to lose weight reflects negatively on his or her identity of being a competent and attractive person. Fourth, the person experiences negative emotions after realizing that his or her current body weight does not meet his or her desired body weight. Fifth, the person shifts his or her level of awareness to a low level. In other words, focuses on sensations and objects in the current environment to escape the negative psychological reaction that resulted from realizing that he or she did not meet a desired weight loss goal. Sixth, the focus on the immediate aspects of the current environment reduces the tendency for the person to consider the long-term consequences of his or her behavior. This lack of restraint increases the tendency for people to engage in typically undesirable behaviors, such as binge eating. The previously mentioned Food for Thought section elaborates by indicating self-awareness is often lost during an eating binge, and the person may lose track of how much they are eating. When you stop keeping track, it is hard to regulate. Even people who do not have eating disorders or dieting ambitions find that they eat more when they stop keeping track, such as when their attention is absorbed in a television show or party. In order to achieve the required motivation, self-regulation, and goals to lose weight, one must first become self-aware and develop the self-esteem or self-efficacy needed to make the decision to change rather than escape. Biases and modes of deception that feed into escape theory and must be overcome. The most obvious is the concept of learned helplessness, or the belief that one's actions will not bring about desired outcomes, leading one to give up and quit trying. Learned helplessness will lead to an individual to give up faster if they feel their goals are impossible. Researcher Carol Dweck has used the term entity theorist to refer to people who regard traits as fixed, stable things, or entities, as opposed to incremental theorists who believe that traits are subject to change and improvement. Entity theorists feel it's impossible to lose weight because they believe their internal attributions in which they lack the ability or effort to lose weight cannot be overcome through learning or self-development. They may also have theories that justify their obesity, such as I'm just big-boned, I have a slow metabolism, or I've always been obese and always will. Learned helplessness can lead to a fear of failure or apathy, which relates to other concepts such as self-handicapping, self-defeating behavior, the confirmation bias, the status quo bias, and the omission bias. It is easier to stick with the same eating and exercise habits rather than introduce a change to fight obesity, especially when people have a fear of failure or anticipated regret. The logic of this behavior is something along the lines of, if I make the wrong decision, I will probably regret it more if I make a change and thus relinquish the good situation I have in favor of a worse one than if I stick with what I have. These are just some of many cognitive distortions that get in the way of the decision to lose weight. However, once the decision to change has been made, one can then work on their motivation, self-regulation, and goals to be successful.
We all strive to be the best version of ourselves, to be our phenomenal self. Sometimes we may be encouraged by upward social comparisons, such as seeing people in the gym with toned physiques, or watch shows like My 600-Pound Life and conduct downward social comparisons. Either way, these comparisons, be it an example or a warning, often plant the seed of motivation. An article on motivation in Psychology Today stated that motivation might be extrinsic, whereby a person is inspired by outside sources, other people, or rewards. Motivation can also be intrinsic, whereby the inspiration comes from within. They may have the desire to improve at a certain activity. Intrinsic motivation tends to push people more forcefully, and the accomplishments are more fulfilling. Often people who seek to lose weight have the motivation to start, but sometimes lose the motivation to keep going. Maybe the scale isn't moving fast enough, or a holiday is approaching and it's hard to say no to all the cakes, cookies, and pies that are around every corner. The first step is changing the mindset around the healthy lifestyle. See it as a journey versus a destination. It's important to make small changes that align with your current lifestyle. Making drastic changes that are not sustainable for your lifestyle may result in goals not being met and the feeling of being defeated. Living a healthy lifestyle can improve not only your physical health, but also have benefits for your mental and social health as well. Finding motivation and keeping it is just the start.
If you have a support system, if you have a best friend that says, we're going to go to the park, we're going to run, we're going to go work out, we're going to go to the gym together, the chances of success are so much higher than when you feel alone.
Components to understanding and defeating obesity are self-regulation and goal setting. Utilizing these concepts can aid in beating obesity.
According to Mark Leary's sociometer theory, a sociometer is a measure of how desirable one would be to other people. In this sense, self-esteem is a sociometer because it measures the traits you have according to how much they qualify you for social acceptance. Social acceptance or rejection can raise or lower your self-esteem, and high self-esteem is extremely beneficial to the regulation of body weight because it helps people be more resilient and fosters positive emotions. The emotional benefits self-esteem produce are important because of the broaden and build theory of positive emotions. According to this theory, positive emotions appear to solve problems of personal growth and development, prepare an individual for later hard times and prevent bad emotions, motivate people to perform tasks and make them more enjoyable, helps flexibility, creativity, and problem-solving ability, and broaden and expand an individual's attention and mindset. A good mood serves a protective function because people will tend to avoid risks. According to mood maintenance theory, people in a good mood want to remain in a good mood, and they would feel bad if they gambled away their achievements. This applies to risks such as overeating instead of maintaining a caloric deficit. Being in a bad mood can have a bigger effect on how much one eats and how food deprived they are because food is often used as a way to cheer up. Positive moods also lead to preferences for healthy food, whereas negative moods lead to preferences for unhealthy food. In other words, people who feel bad often eat badly with foods that are typically high in sugar, fat, and carbohydrates, in other words, comfort foods. Kidger and Boys studied a group of participants trying to lose weight who either associated chocolate cake with guilt or celebration. They found that those who felt guilty reported lower levels of perceived behavioral control, had no increase in motivation to lose weight, and were less successful in losing or maintaining their weight. The researchers concluded that worry, concern, and guilt about food are counterproductive. It is best to permit oneself to have positive feelings when eating comfort foods even if it breaks a diet, and instead use a flexible dieting plan that incorporates comfort foods in moderation to begin with.
It's kind of like AA or Al-Anon. You have a sponsor, your personal trainer is the sponsor, and there's going to be setbacks, and they're going to say, oh man, I cheated. I had a piece of chocolate cake. And you're like, that's okay, move on. You need somebody. We all need somebody for behavior.
With all that said, getting into or staying in a good mood can be hard. Some effective mood and affect regulation strategies include keeping busy doing a task or chore. This simultaneously takes the mind off of troubles and also creates good feelings of success and efficacy. Another strategy is to simply do things that produce good feelings, such as having sex, listening to music, or shopping. Alternatively, do something to take your mind off of a problem, such as watching television, changing your location, avoiding the source of the problem, or taking a shower. Raising or lowering arousal is also a promising strategy for affect regulation. To increase arousal, try exercising, drinking coffee, or other caffeine products, or drinking alcohol, taking a nap, and using relaxation techniques to decrease arousal. Seeking social support, such as calling up a friend, is another effective strategy for controlling emotion. Mood regulation is only one of many aspects of self-regulation or self-control, which refers to the self's capacity to alter its own responses. Effective self-regulation has three main components: standards, monitoring, and strength, or otherwise referred to as the capacity to change. The TOTE model, which stands for Test, Operate, Test, Exit, is a great tool to use for self-monitoring. The steps to self-regulation relate to weight loss in the following ways. First, commit to realistic standards or goals in terms of weight or body measurements, such as waist size and percentage of body fat. Additionally, set lower-level goals, such as losing a pound or two each week and/or not eating more than 1,500 calories per day. In terms of monitoring, keep track of what you eat, calories consumed, and how much you weigh. People who weigh themselves every day are most successful at losing weight and keeping it off. Also avoid distracted eating, such as while watching television, so you can be aware of how much you eat. When dieters break their diets, they often stop keeping track and hence lose any sense of how much they're eating, which can produce an eating binge. Lastly, the capacity for change is strongest during a period of stability. When your willpower is depleted from coping with stress or deadlines, making hard decisions, resisting temptation, or making other efforts to change the self, you will have less strength available for effective dieting. To overcome vices, people are better off not suppressing unwanted thoughts or the things they crave. Thought suppression only makes people think more about the food they're trying not to think about, called a rebound effect. This relates to counter-regulation, also called the what the heck effect, which is the tendency for dieters to think, my diet is already blown for the day by drinking that milkshake, so what the heck, I might as well enjoy some ice cream too. However, whether dieters think their diet is blown for the day depends more on how they think about certain foods than on the actual number of calories consumed. With the skills acquired through proper self-regulation, people can work on setting and achieving their goals to develop new habits that maintain their success.
Setting goals and the planning it takes involves a complex series of cognitive and psychological processes that ultimately determine success or failure. Regarding goals of weight loss and exercise, goals must be executed consistently and with strategies in mind to support success. This means that weight loss and maintenance is far more than just a physical workout schedule and sticking to diet plans. It is important to have both short and long-term goals because short-term goals act as mile markers in achieving long-term goals. Setting a long-term goal to lose 30 pounds is outstanding, but what actions must be performed daily, weekly, and monthly to lose those 30 pounds? That's where short-term goals come in. The planning portion of setting goals can be especially challenging. A plan that is too detailed can be intimidating, while a plan that is too vague may not offer enough concrete steps and support to achieve the goal in mind. To make this step even more complicated, different people will respond differently to different levels of planning based on their own unique level of motivation and the type of goal they are setting out to achieve. For example, a study conducted with participants from the Maccabi Healthcare weight loss program in Israel found that individuals that set extremely high, at times even unrealistic, weight loss goals actually performed better when their plans were highly detailed and specific.
People hate goals. They really hate goals, but it works. Even though you struggle and you say, I want you to give me something. What do you want to do? Do you want to participate in a 5K? Do you want to be able to do this by this time? So goal setting as a teaching and anywhere, anything you do has got to be measurable. It's got to have a set date, an end date. And once they have that set goal in mind, they will perform better.
Goal-setting models, such as the DAPS model, can be helpful tools to making sure the goals we set can be achieved. A goal should be dated, achievable, personal, positive, and specific. Habits form when goals are reached and behaviors become routine. Cognitively, this means the deliberate system is no longer hard at work learning new routines such as exercise and healthy eating, and the automatic system can take over. In some respects, forming new habits are the culmination of achieved goals and an essential part of maintaining the important lifestyle modifications that individuals make in losing and maintaining weight.
As we've stated previously in the video, weight loss is not just a battle of the bulge, it's a battle of the mind.
First, one must choose to change rather than escape from their predicament.
Weight loss and maintenance requires motivation,
Self-regulation,
And goal-setting skills.
When these social psychological principles have been learned and acquired, people can develop the self-efficacy needed to lose weight.